at the coffee shop yesterday.
Excuse me?
You think I'm one of those women?
What? One of what women?
One of those women we hate who just works until she gets married.
Charlotte, it's 8:15.
That's not a response.
It's an 8:15 in the morning response.
The women's movement is supposed to be about choice. And if I choose to quit my job, that is my choice.
The women's movement? Jesus Christ, I haven't even had coffee yet.
It's my life and my choice.
Behind my choice. You get behind your choice.
I am behind my choice. I choose my choice.
Charlotte, I don't have time for this. I have to go to work. Some of us still have to go to work.
I choose my choice. I choose my...
Lately, I've just been thinking about the type of choices we call empowering and the labels we put on the choices and the way we act in society. But essentially, this video is just going to cover topics such as choice feminism, white feminism, bimbo feminism, choice, as well as just how we see feminism in contemporary modern society. But yeah, this video essay is currently titled Choice Feminism is BS. I'm not sure. It's a rolling title. It might not stick with that. But I really did want to explore the power of choice and feminism right now in society. So, But if you're new here, hi, I'm Sherwin, and this is Sherwin Unfiltered, where I explore media, fashion, politics, and everything in between. A lot of this video is rooted from recent readings I've been doing, such as Audre Lorde in her book The Master's Tools Who Never Dismantled the Master's House, Mikki Kendall on Hood Feminism, and Koa Beck and her writings on white feminism as well. I really just did want to explore feminism, how we see it in contemporary society, but I think it's also just really important to just define certain terms. And the first time I really wanted to talk about was choice feminism. And choice feminism essentially suggests that any decision made by a woman is automatically feminist. And not because of the impact, but just simply because a woman has made that choice, it equates to feminism and it's a feminist act. And that can either be quitting your job or sex work. And I think I was reading this Substack recently that was talking about how sex work will never be feminist. And it is that discussion around what do we think is feminist and what do we deem as feminist as well. Choice feminism, I think, is definitely blurring those lines. But I also think choice feminism is reflective of the society we live in right now, which is becoming increasingly individualistic. It has transformed the way we see feminism from this collective, structural, and political movement into a personal aesthetic or branding. So the pressures of feminism doesn't go on the systems anymore and the systems that were supposed to try and change for equality, but rather falls on the shoulders of a few individuals to try and push the movement forward, which I think is really interesting, but also really reflective of the increasingly individualistic society that we're living in right now. I really wanted to explore this topic by discussing the book I read recently, which is Audre Lorde's book, The Master's Tools Who Never Dismantled the Master's House. And she wrote that book back in 1979, in which she discusses the personal and the political, as well as feminism. And the same issues she talks that discusses those three concepts, the personal, the political, and feminism, are still the same issues that plagues them today in 2026. The same issues back in 1979 plagues us in 2026. And she warned us. My camera sort of died mid-video, which is embarrassing. But essentially what I was saying is that Audre Lorde was always talking about the issues that truth feminism embodies right now in the way that white feminism and contemporary feminism, white feminism, was quite exclusionary to the plight of women of color or low-income women or women who weren't necessarily white middle-class women. And I think choice feminism really emboldens that. And it's feminism that's kind of shaped by the same systems that embodied patriarchy and capitalism. It's shaped and reshaped by neoliberalism, an ideology that basically treats structural injustice as a matter of personal responsibility, because everything in choice feminism is a personal choice, which limits or restricts feminism or puts the weight of feminism on a single individual's back rather than a collective movement in which we all share this bondage. Two quotes by Lorde in the book that I really want to quote. The first being, there is no such thing as a single issue struggle. We do not live a single issue life. And I really think she really highlights the idea of intersectionality before we even coined the term of intersectionality and before we started using it widestreamly to talk about feminism and other issues, that we are very, as human beings, we're complex individuals and we are not the single identity. And that should also reflect in the activism in which we participate and engage in. And the second quote I want to share is: some problems we share as women, some we do not. For her, liberation was collective. Although we are diverse as women, we all still share the identity of women. But choice feminism makes feminism this singular or sole issue that if you're not liberated, the problem is you, not the system. And the problem is your mindset, and you need to change or do better for yourself within the system that enforces patriarchy and capitalism. But I think Audre Lorde also spoke in terms of how choice feminism often blends in with white feminism, and white feminism differs quite a bit from how women of color or people from disadvantaged backgrounds look at feminism. In that, white feminism wants to benefit in the current system that we're in, or basically have power in this current system that has traditionally been patriarchal and been capitalistic and has traditionally been used to keep women out and basically have power in that system. But I think for women of color or just other type of feminists, we truly understand that the system, as Audre Lorde's book says, the master's tools can't dismantle the master's house. In that, in this current system that has been made to be patriarchal and extremely capitalistic against women, you cannot really champion feminism or equality in this current system. For revolution to happen, this current system must be dismantled and broken down, and a new system must be created for an inclusive and feminist and anti-capitalistic and anti-patriarchal society that benefits everyone equally.
And you're going to have to keep on saying that. You're going to have to say that I am a proletarian. I am the people. I'm not the pig. You got to make a distinction. And the people are going to have to attack the pigs. The people are going to have to stand up against the pigs. That's
And I think choice feminism tries to champion equality, but fails on both notions of equality and equity. Equity in the instance that knowing that our choices will never be the same and is inevitably influenced by our backgrounds, such as race, religion, disability, sexuality, um, income, or class, essentially. And those will inevitably affect the choices we make. And essentially, a lot of us will have to make choices out of desperation. And I think this really links back in the Substack article I was speaking about earlier, that sex work will never be feminist. And I want to discuss a quote mentioned in which says sex work can never be feminist because pornography is inherently anti-feminist. Rape can be depicted in pornography without it really being rape, just representation of it. Explicit, violent, and non-consensual acts can be recreated for enjoyment, and ethics of it aren't questioned because an industry that relies on the exploitation of ethics. And the writer really explores the idea of neoliberal and pro-sex feminists who pose this argument as empowering, that when women choose to engage in sex work and make money of it, or engage in pornography and make money out of it, that because inherently choosing it is inherently feminist. But if we think about the origins of pornography, it's inherently made to serve men and still serves men regardless. In this extremely capitalist society, that you're still benefiting and serving men and capitalism. So I definitely think it's an important aspect to consider. But I think the reason why the lines are blurred between pornography and feminism, if we link back to Audre Lorde, in which she discusses in her book The Master's Tool Never Dismantle the Master's House, she discusses the difference between pornography and erotica. I think for quite a long time, women enjoying sex or pleasure wasn't seen as desirable, or just was not supposed to be heard of ever. You're not supposed to enjoy sex as a woman. It's purely a male thing to enjoy pleasure and sex. And I think pornography stems out of just the pleasure of men. But we often at times confuse pornography with erotica. Erotica is just enjoyment in general, enjoying life. And if I can find a quote said by her, she really explores the difference between erotica and pornography. And I think that difference is also blurred in the lines for many pro-sex and liberal feminists who I guess want to talk more about erotica, not pornography, because pornography will inevitably serve men and inevitably to me seems anti-feminist. I also really want to explore Mikki Kendall and her book Code Feminism. When I first read it 2 years ago, it completely changed my worldview and how I viewed feminism. And she explores from a refreshingly new perspective, which is Black, person of color informed, religious informed, trans women informed, disability informed. She just really encompasses so many other different perspectives other than white feminism that it was just refreshing to read. And she really explores material reality, and she talks about stuff like food deserts, housing statistics, and handwritten notes. And it was just issues I had thought about in terms of poverty, but I never related in terms of feminism. And she writes in Hood Feminism, food insecurity is a feminist issue, housing insecurity is a feminist issue, survival is a feminist issue. And I knew that these were issues like we had in the world, but I never really equated them with feminism. And so she kind of bridges that gap between these issues that you think about are also feminist issues. And Kendall argues that mainstream feminism often centers around white middle class women, whilst marginalizing the issues that are most vulnerable. She really brought up an important point that I think is really important not to ignore. When we think about statistics of women really encompass all of us. So white women, black women, all types of women, including trans women. But when it comes to advocating for women, most of the time advocacy is only for white women or white middle class women. And the issues that we see talked about in terms of contemporary feminism, like pay rise issues and just issues within the system, as I guess workplace, are important issues, of course, but they but there's so many other issues that often go overlooked because for the contemporary feminism, which is run and fueled by the white middle class women, their issues are limited to like pay rise and just issues with breaking the glass ceiling. Still important issues, but issues like poverty, period poverty, food insecurity, housing insecurity, violence against women of color and trans women are also feminist issues that never really get talked about enough in mainstream media because we don't create poverty as a feminist issue because we see these two things as separate entities when often at times a lot of the issues we go through are intersectional. And I think choice feminism is also limiting that connects that people cannot understand that connects between food insecurity and feminism. And it's not necessarily that these issues don't exist in the conscious mind of like white feminists, but I think choice feminism allows privileged women to frame their decisions as well. Like buying luxury goods and becoming the housewife or creating jobs or performing hyperfemininity and like oh how to be feminine content is reinforced as oh I'm just really empowering women through this notion. I'm not saying that being feminine or being hyper feminine isn't feminist, but we cannot argue that you're just solely empowering women through that type of content, for instance. But I think it inherently turns the issues faced by other women of color or just women who are at the front of the feminist movement, such as issues like poverty, race and disability, immigration precarity, human rights abuses, trafficking. These are all feminist issues, but these women that are navigating those issues are told that their issues are separate from feminism, essentially. And choice feminism essentially makes liberation a choice and it's optional to advocate for these issues. And you can pick and choose and drop when you want to be feminist. And it turns solidarity into this hobby. Whereas the structural violence that these women are going through day by day sort of just becomes background noise, and the center of this is just white feminism. And I also really want to talk about Koa Beck and her writings on white feminism. And it's quite refreshing just because she's a white woman and she can really acknowledge her privilege within the feminist movement. And she basically traces how mainstream like feminism is turned into something that's marketable and palatable in the current system that is increasingly patriarchal and capitalistic. So it really becomes about girl bossing within a system that's already very, very unequal. And she argues that the white feminism isn't really concerned with dismantling power structures but gaining access to them. So in this system that's like I said again, patriarchal and capitalistic, they're not necessarily trying to make the system more equal for just for them as women to also benefit from the system, not just men. And so success within inequality sort of becomes the goal of white feminism. And it turns feminism into this lifestyle and created aesthetic that is really marketable and palatable, and you can spend your money on in a capitalistic and patriarchal society without ever having to change the system and continually have a system that's continually unequal. Because the only reason why these systems and these structures in society work so well is because of inequality and issues like poverty and adversity have to exist for these systems to work so well. And this links really well into bimbo feminism that I was going to mention earlier. And bimbo feminism, I think, is one of the most visible forms of choice feminism. And the root of bimbo feminism, I don't think is terrible because it aims to make like complex issues or complex terms palatable and easier for women to understand. But I think whilst it tries to do that, it just assumes that women are stupid. Inherently so, it assumes that women are borderline stupid and that everything has to be broken down into really simple terms like makeup or just terms that are traditionally or stereotypically woman based. I think bimbo feminism essentially treats women, grown women, as children. Essentially, it argues that hyperfemininity exaggerates softness, beauty, desirability, or all empowering when you choose them to be. I'm not saying that looking nice cannot be empowering, because I think if that is important to you, then that is important to you. But I feel like bimbo feminism plays on this and makes feminism in a way that's desirable and palatable to men, essentially, by using stereotypically female spaces to do that. And I want to quote Naomi Wolf in what she said in The Beauty Myth. The beauty myth is always actually prescribing behavior, not appearance. And beauty label is not neutral if you think about it. The amount of stuff that women have to do to look good or palatable in this society is quite egregious compared to what men have to do, for instance. And this beauty maintenance and this reclaiming of beauty and self really still heavily depends on stuff that capitalistic and patriarchal society is built on. So consumption, whiteness and aesthetic norm, sexual availability, and the male gaze as currency. It reframes like patriarchal expectations as reclamation, and it doesn't really question why these expectations for women essentially exist in the first place and why we're expected to be this beautiful and be beautiful in a way that's palatable to men. I think a really interesting case study with this is with birthday makeup. I don't know why this just came up in my head and it's not even my notes, but birthday makeup is really interesting in terms of men, like worldwide, men just hate birthday makeup. And I think it's just because of the influence on color theory, and just because birthday makeup is a lot more colorful and you can tell you have makeup on. Like this whole rewind into how we look at makeup now and how everyone is doing softer makeup or bronzy makeup or just basically clean girl makeup or makeup that isn't like obvious that it's makeup feels like a palatability sense to me. I'm not saying that it is, but some of it, men, if I think about the male gaze is appreciative of that type of makeup more than birthday makeup, for instance. But it really links into my final point, which I really want to speak about this, the way feminism has been transformed and reshaped by our media into something that we can inherently just choose. But also that a lot of women are literally just denouncing feminism as well. I've seen a lot of women say that I'm not a feminist, and it's quite atrocious because the thoughts, hopes, and dreams they talk about, and the act of inherently saying that you're not feminist or choosing to be feminist and choosing not to be voting are all feminist acts. And I feel that the way media has reframed feminism in this inherently angered thing that is just suddenly angry. But feminism has always been hangry. It's not just this new freshly thing. It was born out of anger and oppression. And I think it's really important to remember and understand that. And right now, with so many things on the table, including reproductive rights and just the right to just choose for like other stuff, choice is feminism, but not choice feminism, if that makes sense. That was kind of where I was trying to go with this video. But thank you for spending this time thinking with me. And if this video has sparked anything in you, please share with someone else that you think they would find it interesting. But yeah, like, share, subscribe, and thank you for watching. And I'll see you guys next week.